maintain that distance, or we can spread people out in the audience section downstairs. Just whatever people feel comfortable with, and we can work with masks if that's desirable as well. I think most of the department's heads have been vaccinated already. I don't know for sure without violating HIPAA laws and people's privacy, so I can't say for sure, but just in anecdotal conversations with people, I feel like most folks have had the opportunity to at least get vaccinated. So I think we're going to be in pretty good shape either way.
Mayor, this is Sean. I'd be fine coming in person. I've been vaccinated. I'm totally comfortable coming in.
Good. And we could encourage people to get their vaccinations. They have to go one way or the other anyway. They're going to have to get it, not get them and wear a mask or do whatever they choose or take the chance. So there's lots of vaccinations out there. We could even go, 1st of July, but I think we're good. Let's go, and then if a city staff member has to come that isn't vaccinated, we shouldn't be a problem. If it sounds like most of us are vaccinated, then Shaylee has had it. She'll be leaving us here shortly, but she may be at another meeting. We don't know that yet. So we did do some interviews yesterday for a new city recorder, so I think that's pretty close too. So I think most of you are. Shaylee's moving on to the police department, taking Cindy Draper's position, and she worked for Weber County Attorney's Office for quite some time, and she'd like to go back and do that type of work. So we wish her well on that. We appreciate what you've done to help us here, Shaylee. Hopefully we'll have you next time, but maybe not. So we'll see.
And I can do the first probably because I don't know about training and stuff like that. So I was already planning on being here the 1st. So that's your first Tuesday of the month. I was planning on doing the meeting that night. So you should do it in person so I can see all of you.
Well, I will see you then. So let's figure on then for January, or for our next meeting in June, that we'll just come. You can wear a mask or not wear a mask. It'll be an in-person meeting, and Bill can bring that up with his staff tomorrow morning to see if there's any reservations there, and if there's anything, we'll let you know. So, all right. Let's move on to consideration to set the public's hearings. Cody, are you with us?
I am, Mayor. These are just the 4 required public hearings that we usually have at that June 15th meeting for if we need to amend the old budget, to set the new budget, to set the wages for the next year, and then to do that non-reciprocal transfer for the water that's used by the city, so that we can kind of reimburse the water department for it. And so we'd just like to get those set by you guys so that we can get them scheduled for the 15th officially. And that's all I have, unless you have any questions for me.
Okay. Do you have any questions for Cody on this?
I had one. This is Braden. So I was looking at this. Now, I think, doesn't this usually go more like under the consent items, just to set the public hearings? And then also one of the things, Shaylee, is that item didn't make it on the state website agenda. So I don't know if that matters or not.
I can double check that. I'll look at it. But Steve, is that a problem?
I think it's on the state website. It's just listed as a separate item, and it doesn't have the packet with it.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure it's on there, and it's on the city's website, has a link to it, and we have a link to both. So I believe it is on the public notice website.
Okay, yeah, it looks like it's just a little further down.
Right, and you're right. They usually are a consent item. When they got added at the last minute as an amendment, they just got added as an action item rather than a consent. So they don't really have to be an action item. But
Because we're not doing anything. We're just agreeing to set the public hearings, right?
correct.
Okay. Okay.
I got one question, Cody, for the main meeting. It says consideration to set public hearings for June. We can do all that in one public hearing, can't we? Or do we need to have them separate? The way this is worded, it could be either way. So I want to
We
be sure
usually
of
have
the way.
all of those as separate public hearings, just to make sure that we're giving people adequate opportunity to comment on those things individually. I don't know if Steve cares if we do them as one public hearing for all of it or part of it.
Don't know if Steve.
Looks like he's trying to push his device.
Yeah,
on
sorry.
mute.
Not used to use my iPad. No, I think we're fine. We can do it more.
Just do one.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any discretionary for this meeting?
Yes, Mayor. Mayor?
Go ahead.
Yeah, my wife was gonna make a public comment during the open forum, but she's delayed. So I'll just bring up the issue that she wanted to talk about, and I might be more, more towards Sean Douglas. And that's, the graffiti, which is discussed from time to time, and the city's response. Now, some of the stuff we're seeing now is not necessarily in Riverdale. The big one that's kind of the eyesore is the Convergence building just off 4400. But is there a way that things could be dealt with? I don't know if that's county property or Ogden City or maybe it's UDOT. I don't know, but how can we as citizens, I mean, Riverdale City is pretty good to deal with what's on Riverdale City's public property, but how can citizens respond to graffiti that surround, not just in the city on public property, but on private property and in the surrounding area?
The best way I know of is to call whatever cities that is in. I know Ogden City still has a graffiti task force and they try and get to theirs. I don't know for sure what Weber County's doing, but the best way would be to call the entity that it's in.
Okay.
There's no longer a county-wide task force, so you're pretty much having to deal with the city. And then as far as the private property, that falls back onto the private property owner to take care of it.
But does Riverdale City have a, or what is the plan for the city?
So anything that's on city property, we take care of.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Any other discretionary? Okay, move on next with RDA agenda. Move down to the consent items, consideration to approve the meeting. Got some either background noise. Did somebody say something? Okay, just hearing some background stuff. Move on to the consent items on the RDA meeting. Consideration to approve the meeting minutes from April 6th. 2021, the RDA meeting, and April 20th, the RDA meeting on April 20th. So do we have any changes or corrections? We just got one item, Shaylee. It's really minute. And I don't remember whether it was, I think which meeting it was that Ted Heap was at our meeting. It shows on the minutes, it shows Ted Heaps, plural, with an S on it. There's a lot of, I knew people when I was young that named Heaps, but he spells it without the S. So you might just look at that one. And I know he was in an closed executive session. So if he's in that one, you might just look and see if they heap in that one too, because he's probably mentioned more than once in that one. So, okay. Okay, move on to action item number 1, discussion consideration to reimburse developers part of the increased property taxes. Mr. Kobabe.
Yeah, I need to apologize for this one. Mike let me know actually after the packets had gone out that this is not a discussion consideration item. It's not an action item as such. It really ought to be under the consent items, but it's my first time getting this on the agenda like this, so I apologize for any confusion on that. This is a per agreement with the RDA. This is a reimbursement that goes out. And it should just be kind of an automatic consent item thing. So I apologize that it's under the action. No action will be necessary on this. We can have a little discussion on it if you'd like, as it is on the agenda. But like I say, there is no action required for this. We will just pay it out for our agreement.
Okay. So we just take it off the agenda then for the next meeting?
Like I say, you can leave it on if you'd like to have a discussion about it, or you can just know that it's a consent item or just we're going to take care of it. It was more just an information item than anything else.
Historically, Mayor, just to clarify, historically this has been a presentation when we've done it in the past, all the way back with Larry Hansen, just to make sure the RDA board's aware of us fulfilling our obligation. In this case, our obligation would be to Boyer for the 550 West RDA. So it's just reflecting that information. Like Bill's saying, there's really not a whole lot to discuss in the pack. I will note one small error I made with the executive summary. The budgeted amount is $210,000. I know in the actual wording I had $200,000. That was a mistake I made, and I'm not changing that back to 210. But this is just an annual reporting that we do before we then have Bill execute the check on behalf of the RDA to do our obligation of reimbursement to Boyer in this case. So just to clarify, that's what this is.
All right, thank you.
Sorry for the confusion on that.
Yeah. Okay, move on to action item 2, consideration to set a public hearing for June 15th, 2021. Mr. Kobabe.
Similar to the item in the regular council meeting, this RDA meeting will need a public hearing to approve the budget. So that's what this item is for.
Okay. Is there any questions on this? That shouldn't be, I guess. Move on to discretionary for this, for the work session on this meeting. We have a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved. Second. This is Braden.
Alan, second.
Okay, thank you. Meeting's adjourned, so.
Aye.
Okay, we'll go back. We'll move into our city council meeting this evening for Tuesday, May 18th, 2021. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Welcome everyone here. We have all the city council members are present this evening. As are members of the staff, we welcome any visitors, those who are watching on YouTube, and any that might be in person there in the meeting, so downstairs. So, we welcome you. I've asked Councilor Stevens if he would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Would all please rise and repeat? I pledge allegiance
Allegiance
to the flag
to the flag
of the United States of
United States of
America
America
and to the republic
and to the
for which
republic
it stands,
for which it stands,
one nation, under God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty
with
and justice for all.
justice for all.
Thank you.
Next, we'd like to take a moment of silence before we begin our meeting. As we take a moment of silence, we'd like to remember those that are serving to protect this nation. We like to remember those who are serving in our cities, our first responders, for their service, and those who put themselves in harm's way in our behalf. Also ask you to remember our city council tonight as they make decisions that are important to Riverdale City, that they might keep the residents in mind as they make these decisions. Now take a moment of silence. Thank you. Move on next. Let's see, public comment. Do we have any public comment? Shaylee, is there anyone there?
So I don't have anything on YouTube. I haven't received any emails, and there's nobody here.
Okay, Rich, do you have any text messages?
I don't have any text, Mayor.
All right, thank you very much. Move on next to presentations and reports. Mayor's report. I just have one item I'd like to bring up and report on. May 6th, we had a graduation exercise for our Riverdale Substance Abuse Court, RSAC. And we had it seemed like there was about 5. Steve, you could probably tell me, but I know there was 4 to 6, at least 4 that graduated. And it was over in Golden Spike Park. We had the police department there. They provided their grill and cooked burgers for the graduates and their families. Some of you have been to these graduations before. I know Counselor Arnold has. Seemed like Counselor Ellis might have, but they're pretty moving sometimes there with these people that are graduating. A lot of us been free of drugs and alcohol for a year, sometimes 2 years, those that are graduating. It's really a life-changing experience for some, those that get involved and work with the counselors and the staff that is involved there. I know we mentioned this before, but I think we're down now. We're the only municipal court in the state of Utah that has a substance abuse court like we do. And I mentioned that. I said a few words at the graduation, and I told them how we were the only ones that were still doing it. And we knew it was important to them, and was doing a lot of good things for some people. I had several, I had graduates, people on the staff. They talked to me and they said they sure hope the city council, they wanted to thank the city council for allowing this to be in the budget and performing this service for these people, because it's some of them bring tears to your eyes. Really, it's really what they've done, what they've gone through, how they've changed their lives. They've actually become involved, got jobs, and they're working and just feeling better and doing better than they have for a lot of years. And some of them have some real stories to tell. So I'd just like to mention that to you, maybe council. And these RSAC graduations don't come along too often, every few months, but if you get an invite and you haven't been to one, do it sometime. And I think it'll help you feel that what we do is, in Riverdale City, it's a good thing. And it does some really, really good things for some people that basically changes their lives and gives them a whole fresh start. So it's really, in my opinion, it's a great program. I think you can save one life and turn somebody's life around for them, and it's worth a lot. So I'll just mention that to you and thank our court staff, Steve, and our judge. Talk to the judge. He seems like he's doing a fine job. Our judge that's fairly new, and he's just a good man. And the staff there too. There's people there that's Karen McIntosh. She was a sergeant on her police force. She's still working with this substance abuse people. And this really means a lot even to the staff members helping these folks. So just pass that on to you. But to me, it's an important program, and I think it's something that we need to, hopefully it'll continue in the future. But again, you might go and visit once in a while, and I think you'll feel the same way. So I'm going to move on to the city administration report. Again, it's really a comprehensive, a lot of information. Do you have any questions for Mr. Kobabe at this time? Bill, do you have anything to add? I know you wanted to recognize some anniversaries.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I would like to recognize some folks here that are celebrating work anniversaries with the city. And at the top of the list, and at the top of everyone's list, should be Sean Douglas, 30 years with the city, and that is absolutely commendable. Sean does a fantastic job. He runs his department so very well that not only is he celebrating 30 years this year and this month, but Abraham Torres and Travis Gibson also in his department are celebrating 15 years and 10 years respectively. So if that doesn't speak volumes about the kind of department that Sean is running, he's fantastic. And the work that these guys do day in and day out is often behind the scenes. They're the unsung heroes of the city. They're the ones that make sure that the water flows and on one side of your house and goes out the other end, the other side of the house. And we're sure grateful for all that they do. We literally couldn't have a city without these guys and their dedication. They're the ones pushing snow in the wee hours of the morning, making sure that we can get to work safely. They're the ones cleaning up the parks to make sure that we all have a great experience there. It's just the things that they do for the city is absolutely. I can't even talk about it. They do so much every day, and the fact that they've been showing up for so many years. And just keep doing it. It really speaks volumes about their character, their loyalty, and their dedication to helping Riverdale stay an amazing city. So kudos and congratulations to those folks that are in the Public Works Department. We're grateful for that. We also have some other officers. We've got a police officer, Luigi Panunzio, who's got 5 years in this year. So congratulations there. We also have a couple of firefighters, Michael and Lance, that have 4 years. Here at the office, we've got Laurie up in the business administration, who's been with us for a couple of years. And again, another one over in PD, Kimberly Wynn, is celebrating her first year with the city. So congratulations to everyone, and thank you so very much to all of our amazing staff who make it such a great place to live and work and play, and just a great place to be here in Riverdale.
Thank you, Mr. Kobabe. Any questions now for Mr. Kobabe? All right, thank you. Move on next to the consent items. Let's see, I skipped over that last presentation, the Riverdale Sewer Capacity Study presentation. Mr. Kobabe, is those folks here yet?
Yeah, I see Ridley is here on the call with us. Ridley, are you there? We can't see you.
Yes. Excuse me. Yes. Can you hear me?
Oh, there you are. Hey. As mentioned in the work session, we've got a study that was being worked on by HAL, and Sean and I had a presentation with them, what was it, about a week and a half ago, and the presentation was so interesting and so informative that I thought that the council ought to be a part of that as well. So I've asked Ridley to present that to us. I know he's got some slides and things he'd like to show. So we'll turn the time over to Ridley.
Okay. Are you seeing my presentation? Oh, here we go.
There we go.
Okay.
Now we're looking at it.
All right. So like Bill was mentioning, really the big question we were trying to answer with this study is, what is down there in the sewer? You know, you don't see it. Most of the time you don't even think about it. But it's important to visit that question from time to time because things change. You know, new developments come in or get proposed, and we need to make sure that the sewer can handle that. So it was essentially a checkup on your sewer system, wanting to see where it's at, how we're doing. Number one, do we have any problems? And number two, will we have any problems if we're not proactive? So just to orient ourselves, water flows downhill, right? So in terms of Riverdale, downhill is generally to the north and then toward the Weber River. And the way the system works out is there's kind of a north half and a south half. This slide here shows the north half. It's a part of the city that's mostly residential. It's pretty well built out. And it flows to a siphon under the Weber River, right about where this red arrow is here. Most of our effort, however, was on this south side. This is a little more interesting, some heavier commercial and higher density uses going on, as well as some developable land. So this is primarily the area we're going to be talking about today. A little bit of background on sewer systems. These pipes serve a number of different functions when they're conveying wastewater. And one piece of that puzzle is infiltration. Sewer pipes are not perfectly watertight, and groundwater can seep into them. That can be a problem if it's excessive, but it's almost impossible to eliminate it altogether. So we plan for some level of infiltration. And I am pleased to report that we did not see any excessive infiltration in your sewer system with the monitoring that we did. The second piece is what comes out of your customers' houses, businesses, etc. That's the bulk of what we plan on in a sewer system. I don't want to get into too many messy details. I assume that's straightforward enough. Another piece of the puzzle is inflow. Once again, these systems aren't perfectly watertight. There are holes in vented manholes, etc. And so when we get a rainstorm, our sewer flows will increase. So we need to plan for that as well. And then finally, we need to plan on an air gap in the top for several reasons. Number one, it helps keep things from turning anaerobic and stinking and corroding the pipes. And number two, as the flow starts to get near the top, it actually increases friction and decreases the capacity of the pipe to convey wastewater. So when we design a sewer system, typically we want the depth of the pipe to be about 75% of the total diameter. Some background information, and when you look at things like profiles, a profile such as this, it might even be hard for you to see. We show just, mostly empty space in this pipe here. There's some flow in the bottom. But when you keep in mind some of these other factors, the inflow and the air gap that we need, that's usually important information as you look at these modeling tools. So how did we do this? Number one is we worked with your public works crew to actually install flow meters. There are different ways to estimate how much flow might be in these sewer pipes, but the only way to really know what's going on is to get down and dirty and measure it. And it was great to work with your crew. They were good sports about climbing down in the sewer and doing the dirty work, so we could accomplish this project. We also ran around the streets and measured the depths of the manholes, used those to construct a hydraulic model, which you can see an example profile right here. So we characterized the diameter of the pipe and the slope and how everything's laid out, and then it can do the calculations to show us how the water moves, how much capacity we have left, and anything that might be going on. This is an example of some output from the metering efforts we did. The flow meter measures depths of the pipe, which will vary throughout the day as people get up and go about their daily routines, or as storms hit, and all those sorts of things. And we'd use that information to then calibrate the flows in our model, and then use the model to determine kind of an ultimate capacity. So now what I'd like to do on this south area where most of our effort took place, I'm kind of just starting uphill and working my way down. So the first section we wanted to look at was an 8-inch diameter pipeline that covers the west end of the city north of Riverdale Road. It comes into Riverdale Road on 1150 West near the Starbucks. And we found that the sewer is limited here to a capacity of 120 gallons per minute of additional customer flow contribution, I guess we can call it. And one question you probably have is, well, how much is that? Is that a little? Is that a lot? And the answer is it kind of depends. A lot of this developable land is, there's potential for some industrial there or commercial. Well, potential for anything really. We'll see, we've seen one single industrial user that can use far more than that. For example, a food processing plant. So you really just have to evaluate development concepts as they come in. If you get warehouses or big box retail, maybe you're fine. If you get higher density housing or some water intensive manufacturing, then you're going to need to figure out a solution. But for that area, that's what we found. It's just going to depend on who wants to come in. Moving down to Riverdale Road at that same intersection, but now coming in from the south, we found a remaining capacity of 185 gallons a minute, which we anticipate will be plenty for any additional growth to the south and west there. 1050 West, we did some extensive monitoring there to really nail that one down. Found a remaining capacity of about 110 gallons per minute. So there is some developable land to the south, kind of off the screen. So this is one to watch. Again, it will depend to some extent on what comes in. But no problems at the moment. Everything I've covered so far, works just fine, has some room to grow. Coming down to Riverdale Road and 700 West, that pipe is 15-inch diameter, which is pretty large. It has a good slope to it, and we found a remaining capacity of 500 gallons per minute there. So no issues to report. Looking at the trunk line on 4400 South, it starts as 10-inch diameter and then transitions to 15-inch. That one also has a good slope. Plenty of remaining capacity, 430 gallons per minute. And then looking at the 18-inch line going into the siphon, we did not necessarily do all the work needed to tell you exactly how many gallons per minute that can handle. We monitored it, we looked at its performance, and determined there's plenty of room. You're going to reach capacity well upstream before you ever have problems down there. And we think that'll take whatever Riverdale's going to give it within the next 20, 30 years, foreseeable future. So in conclusion, just kind of main things we want to keep in mind is you know, as areas grow and change, and they are a lot right now. I don't know about Riverdale, but I assume you're seeing a lot of development interest like everyone else, or even redevelopment. So just an important question to keep on your mind as people propose developments is, you know, can the sewer system handle it? And then this west end of town is particularly interesting because there's a lot of developable land. So we've identified a limitation on that west end of town, 120 gallons per minute. But if somebody does want to come in and they need more than that, we do have some options. You know, the trunk lines in Riverdale Road and in 4400 South have capacity. You would need to just run a line to get it there. That north side of the system has capacity as well. So there are options. You know, it's looking pretty good. We've seen much worse as we've done this over the years. But would just encourage you to be proactive and to make sure you ask these questions and use this model that we've developed as you consider new development concepts. That's what I have for you. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Mayor, this is Braden. I have a question.
Go ahead, Councilor.
So I can see that limited line crosses I-84. Would you be able to hook on the east side of 84 and develop that extra capacity, hooking somewhere else, or would you have to deal with 84?
I think you'd have to deal with it one way or another, right?
So
Yeah.
Braden, Sean, that's an 8-inch line all the way out to Riverdale Road. So to increase capacity on that, you'd have to start at Riverdale Road and work backwards.
Okay, thanks.
We asked about that in connection with the anticipated development up there between I-15 and I-84. And one of the considerations, and he put that up there on the very last slide that he showed, was there is potential because of the topography, and you see the arrow that just appeared there along the north side of Riverdale Road, heading north and east. There is potential to run a line through there, possibly, if that makes sense. And so that leaves the 120 gallons per minute that's currently available in the capacity for areas up to the north, while we work on an additional line potentially to the south edge of the property. So these are all things that we need to think about. For what is being currently proposed up there with, I know we've talked to Mr. Heap and others about some potential development up there. For what is currently being proposed, we feel like there is sufficient capacity in the line to handle the current proposals and the current uses. But any additional may tax the system, and we may need to look at alternate ways to get off the hill. So that's kind of where we're at with that.
It's good to know. Thanks, Bill. Thanks, Ridley. Any other questions?
Yes,
on this?
Mayor, this is Bart.
Go ahead, Bart.
Yeah. Now, Weber, I guess the sewer district, or where are the plants and where are the pumps that get it to there? We talk about our city limits, but we don't have any treatment plants in our municipality, but it goes into the. So where are the pumps at, or are there any pumps in the city?
So this Sean, we currently have no pumps in the city. The trunk line for Central Weber runs along the river and carries it to the north, and then it goes out to Slaterville, and it's treated in Slaterville. So all of our tie-ins are along the river where they have their trunk line.
Okay, thank you. And if I could indulge this meeting for a brief minute, but a number of years ago, I worked for a municipality in Southern California that was about 250,000 at the time. I worked in the utilities. I worked in distribution as opposed to collections, which is this would categorize as collections. But in the late 1980s, early 1990s, there was about a 7-year drought in Southern California. And in the 91, 92, 93, we experienced something that, because there was a lot of water conservation going on, just a lot of things that were happening. They changed the toilets from 3 gallon to 1.6 low flow, and a lot of things were happening, and cottage industries came up that now in Southern California they don't have basements, so what I'm going to talk about really maybe wouldn't work here, but there was a cottage industry where you'd set up cisterns outside your house and you take the water from your washing machine or from the bathtub. Instead of going into the sewer, it would be siphoned out into a cistern so that it could be water in the grass, because it was practically, you couldn't water outside because water was so limited. Well, the effect of that is there wasn't enough water going into the sewer system to dissolve solid waste, literally. And so it was like, it's okay, you can take a bath and have it go down the drain instead of stopping it and siphoning it out, because it was, in some areas, literally, we had to open up the sewer and open up the fire hydrant and put water into the sewer system, because it was starting to burn out the motors because there wasn't enough water in the system. Now, this is a little bit of an extreme maybe example, but this is where water conservation went to a level that it negatively impacted the efficiency of the sewer system to operate, because it needs a minimum amount of water to be able to flow or to move the whole get solid waste dissolved and move through the system. And I mean, it wasn't just the city of Oceanside where I was, but it was other communities in the area that were dealing with it and had problems with their pumps, and because there wasn't enough water in the system because of the extreme levels of water conservation that was going on. Now, would we see that? Have they seen it since? They only because I knew about it because I worked there, but really those types of scenarios really aren't talked about, because those are, you want the water conservation, and this is just a minor hiccup until the situation improves. Anyway, thanks for listening. I appreciate it. That's all.
That's a good point, Bart. Thank you. Good information. Do we have any other questions regarding the sewer study? Okay, we'd like to thank Mr. Ridley Griggs for being with us and for that presentation and your study that you did. And we thank you for being here. Thanks, Bill, also for your comments on that. So,
thank you. It's been great to work with Riverdale.
Well, it's good. Hope we build in the future. Okay, I'm sure we will somewhere. Thank you very much. Let's move on next to the consent items. This is consideration to approve the meeting minutes from May 4th, 2021, the City Council work session, and the regular City Council meeting on that same date. Do we have any changes or corrections to the minutes? With that, do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
Yeah, Mayor, this is Braden. Motion to approve the consent items.
This is Brent. Second.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous in favor. Move on next to the action items. Action item number 1. This is consideration of resolution 2021-10. This is awarding a bid to Bowen Construction Company for the 2021 stormwater projects in an amount not to exceed $356,107.40. Mr. Douglas.
Thank you, Mayor. So we talked about this earlier. The one project is the open stormwater behind Golden Spike Park, and it's to pipe that, connect the two pipes together so that it eliminates the flooding that comes into the park on the rainstorms or the heavy flows, which should really clean that corner up over there a lot. And then the other part of the project is to fix the intersection at 1025 over behind the tile store over there and get rid of that heavy waterway that the cars are dragging on and kind of clean up all four corners of that intersection. And if you have any questions, I'll try and answer them for you.
Mayor, this is Alan. I'll make a motion if you'd let me.
Go ahead, Alan.
Move to approve resolution 2021-10 awarding a bid to Bowen Construction Company for the 2021 stormwater project in the amount not to exceed $356,107.40.
This is Braden, second.
Yeah, we have a motion. We have a second. Any discussion on this motion? Ms. Nay, will you poll the council, please, on this resolution?
Councilmember Ellis?
Aye.
Councilmember Mitchell?
Aye.
Councilmember Arnold?
Aye.
Councilmember Hilton?
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens?
Aye.
It's unanimous in favor. Thank you. Move on to action item number 2. This is a discussion being presented by President Jim Packard on the potential plan for disc golf on our 40 acres on the south end of the south of the Civic Center. You here, Mr. Packard?
I am.
Should go ahead. Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you all again. It's been a long 2 weeks since we saw you last. I wanted to mention there's 2 primary things first before I begin a presentation. First, I'm here representing myself and other disc golfers. I'm not officially representing the Northern Utah Disc Golf Association. The things I'll share are my ideas, my proposals, my estimates, etc. And ongoing discussions are being had with that association. The second thing I'll mention is my purpose is to hopefully gain consent from the City Council to continue to move forward to start looking at potentially approving the usage of some land to create new disc golf parks here in Riverdale. I've got a handful of slides I'd like to share. Is everyone seeing them?
Yep.
Okay, I got some nods. Wonderful. So thank you again for your time. There are 2 significant events happening here in Riverdale and in the Ogden area regarding disc golf in the coming few months. The first one is the World Championships of Disc Golf are being played at Fort Buenaventura next month. That's not city championships, state, world championships. People from all over the world will be coming and enjoying the beautiful Ogden area and enjoying the parks here. That will have ripple effects. The second major event is that the beloved river park that has been established for almost 20 years at this point is going to be removed at the end of the summer for usage of private development, understandably. Both of these have significant ripples in the disc golf community and in families and professionals throughout the state and beyond. When you think of people who are playing disc golf, the city council members, perhaps you might not recognize this, that there is a professional disc golf association where people who make a living with sponsorships and events, and they come from around the United States and enjoy the courses here and nearby. Not only is it professional and hobby, but it's also growing among families who are itching to get out more and more as we see far more people attending parks and outdoor recreation areas. Both of these opportunities among the professional group and family groups are going to be lost with the loss of this disc golf park. And so it is that I would propose that we can create new disc golf usage in the city. I have a handful of proposal items here. Create 2 new disc golf courses utilizing unused city property, currently unused city property, to continue a strong tradition of disc golf in the Ogden area solidify the area as a destination area for disc golf, to have some of the top courses. There are 140 courses in the state, and that's growing. And we've got three of the best, three of probably the top 10 in the Ogden area currently. And we could solidify that even more. Expend little to no city budget with this effort and leverage the community and other associations like the Northern Utah Disc Golf Association for upkeep. I have just a couple slides to show where I propose we could do this. This is after discussing potentials with both council members Hilton and Mitchell. The first is the green space near the city buildings. This we could fit in a 9-hole intermediate course. It's very family friendly on the grassy area and surrounding, and I'm happy to share that. I can send this if we needed to at some point. Can you see that all right? These yellow lines just represent where you might go. These polygons, I guess is the word for it, would be the tee boxes, and the circles are the baskets. So that's a proposal of a more family-friendly course, similar to the one you might see up in Brigham City, if anybody's seen that one. So that's course one, which, and this, Mr. Mayor, you mentioned last time I spoke that there was a proposal that some of the existing land that's being used for disc golf might not be lost. I'm not familiar with what could or could not be used. Perhaps this could be combined with space that's not being lost to that private development. The other space that we'd propose using is directly behind the Walmart. As you see the roundabout here, this is all on currently owned city land, which I understand is potentially up for sale to private developers. Here we could fit 15 holes as well. I've walked both of these potential outlines, and this could fit a wonderful course that's very similar to the course that we have already existing. And this, I realize, is a stretch. Directly next to this is the Katrubis property that could hold non-permanent holes if the Katrubis ownership would be willing. No permanent structures, but just using it while it's not developed yet. So potential areas that could be immediately developed, understanding that there are plans for park development in the future. I also recognize that park development takes a long time. Disc golf course development does not. It could be potentially done within a matter of a couple of months for minimal costs, whereas full park development could take years potentially. And so the hope is that while we're losing the park at the very end of the summer, we could hopefully regain a park rather quickly. I do have some very rough estimate numbers on what costs could be, and the proposal is to gain most of this, if not all of this, through fundraising, potential Northern Utah Disc Golf Association events to raise funds, or donations from construction companies or similar. Compared to the costs that we have, considering other developments, these are rather minimal. And again, the hope is that this could be done for a net zero cost to the city. And the biggest thing is usage of the land. This is one option. This is, again, considering 32 holes. That includes that Katrubis property, understanding that that might not be possible. And this is primarily using cement pads. The baskets are already going to be provided by the Northern Utah Disc Golf Association because they have existing baskets. Those could come over. Main costs would be potential of cement pads, rubber pads for non-permanent holes. Alternatively, there could be rubber pads for all of them for a lesser cost. Again, this could be a fantastic course that could be put in relatively short. That's all the slides I'd love to share with you. At this point, I'm happy to hear any questions or comments. I'm very interested.
Let me share some thoughts with you. Okay?
Please.
Might help to eliminate some of that, or else kind of give a perspective. I think the city council members are all pretty well on board with this. I like just looking at it. I like the idea of the course number one. I think you're thinking outside the box, whether that's doable or, Mr. Douglas is here. I don't know if he'll have any comments, but that is using an area that is already developed. It's got grass. It would be nice. It'd be a good area to for people to be in instead of out in the weeds and the dust, dirt and the sagebrush and stuff.
Right.
So I kind of like that, where it's working back around out of the way areas that aren't being used. I think that has merit to that. I think that might be something the council might be interested in. The property across the river by where you had your course number 2, there's about
Yes.
17 acres over there. That was purchased for a park. And we do have a design for that park. Right now, the thought is we need money to develop that park. And what we found is we actually can sell that property over there. And that money that would be used there, that property is actually, we were told recently, it's close to double what we paid for it. So it was a good investment, but that's about $3.5 million over there for your course number 2 that you'd be playing on. And that property over there, what we're considering doing is south of the bike park. There's 40 acres there. And that 40 acres, we're looking at using that 40 acres to build another park, a 40-acre park. And the money from the sale of the 17 acres, that $3.5 million, that'll go a long way to finishing that park without bonding. So that's kind of the consideration now. There hasn't been nothing definite. The council hasn't approved or hasn't voted on this. These are just conceptual ideas that are being looked at by myself, the staff. I know the council's been in discussions looking at that. But that area, that 40 acres south, is always, since I've been involved in city government, there was even money being set aside, but that 40 acres has always been looked at as park area. It's close to our city maintenance shops, public workshops. It's close, it'd be easy to maintain. And we've actually put money away for that area for different sports fields or different things to be built in that area. So that money, it's been changed, but there were at one time capital improvements. There was a significant amount of money that was being diverted that way that could possibly be used in the future. So that's kind of where the city is thinking right now. That 17 acres over there most likely wouldn't be available for course number 2. I'm sure you know that south of our 40 acres, there's about 68 acres there. I think some of your disc golf's on that, and it looked like you're kind of thinking of moving away from that. But I think we did mention to Bach Holmes about your disc golf. And we actually have an individual right now, a developer, who's actually doing a preliminary design for a park on the 40 acres. And he's just looking at maybe doing a land swap for building the park. And we have the city council who probably hasn't even heard, but we just told this guy he's been wanting to do it and do a property exchange for developing a park there. So we just wanted to see what he could come up with. But that's probably going to come. That'll be, I don't know how far along he is with it, but we've told anybody there that's worked there that's about Northern Utah Golf Association and the disc golf course. And we would hope, I think, at least I'm pretty sure myself, and I think the council probably agree, we hope that there would be, you could still have your disc golf venue where you could play and really have a good time. But that's why I kind of like that number 1 idea you had around existing around the Civic Center and this open spaces down around behind. You're actually behind Public Works. There's, I think, maybe one hole here and there that goes out on the grass down there, but I don't know. You know, that's, to me, that's isn't that's making good use of things, and you know, if it would work for Public Works and those folks, and everything would have to be looked at. But I think that's that would be a good, that could be real possibilities there. So that's just kind of my spin on it. I don't know if you got any questions for me, but I'll turn it over to the council.
Yeah.
And just kind of see what their thoughts, but I kind of thought I ought to give an overview.
Right.
Of kind of what we're looking at, because there's like a couple of those things, this preliminary design on the 40 acres, it's just kind of being done quietly, and something that the council would see here shortly, and see what they think about it too. But do you have any questions for me, or should I just turn it to the council?
A couple of questions, and I'd love to hear additional questions from the council. So the 40 acres, so it makes complete sense if that 17 acres behind the Walmart is already, or is very close to going through, then that makes complete sense. The money makes sense to me as well, and it sounds great that the city is finding a way to make best use of the assets to create these open spaces for people. The 40 acres you mentioned, is it the 40 acres immediately south of the BMX park that is currently in use of some of the disc golf area?
It's pretty well to the south. Mike Eggett, you want to comment on that? You know the layout pretty good as far as the land.
I believe that the city park property in the 40 acres includes the BMX park, but yes, it continues south until you get to private property, which is the property owned by the Bach Homes Group, and that's about 68 acres across the river. It's approximately about where the roundabout at 900 currently is, where you're showing the Katrubis property and the city property meeting up.
Right.
A future date that the proposal would be for a roadway at some point to cross with a new bridge and link up, and that's kind of where the property divider is between the city park, future park property, and the property owner. There's a line that splits kind of along that area as you cross the river.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I can imagine a scenario where these holes that you see designed on this slide could couple with that 40 acre area, even some existing holes to make a new course that preserves some of the existing course and this new piece. But I could see that working wonderfully well. The only other thing I would clarify, and it's just a slight comment, is among the disc golf community, so while this is making great use of green space, the disc golf community does not necessarily need to have green space in order for it to be an enjoyable course. In fact, they call the existing River Park course a safari course, lovingly. Hacking through the bush makes for some of the best disc golf experiences. So I mentioned that not as a derogatory comment or a counter argument of any sort, simply a matter of it doesn't need to be developed for it to be a good use for the disc golf community. It could, so that makes it so it's potential to happen sooner if possible, and it reduces costs. And I'd love to be involved in, or find out or learn who is involved in the potential disc golf course creation of that, or portion of that new course, or that new park area.
The individual that's actually looking at that property to develop a park, I gave him the Northern Utah Disc Golf folks. And,
okay.
I don't know if they've talked to you or not. I can't remember whether I had your number then. I know we've had an email or two, but I have given them about the disc golf thing and asked them to work with that.
Wonderful.
Something else I'd mention maybe for the council is that we've also had a couple other developers that are interested in that property to develop it. One of them is a Utah name development company. I won't go into, it's all still isn't public information at this point. We haven't actually done anything as far as ideas they might have or bids, but we kind of want to control what happens over in that property.
Right.
It's a pretty important piece of property to the city. So, council, do you have any questions or comments or ideas or anything? Those are just some kind of an overview of kind of what's been looked at, being looked at right now. So.
Mayor, this is Alan. I think that anything until it's developed, if they're gonna able to use the space, I think it's great. There's not a lot of infrastructure that goes in. And it'd be good to have even something on that 17 acres until something happens. And this course number one's kind of cool and it's a lot of space. If Sean Douglas doesn't have a problem with it, I mean, I wouldn't see a problem. Ready, set, go.
Yeah, I think it looks pretty good. I think they need to look at it, talk about it, make sure that, I don't think it's a decision tonight. That's my opinion, to go ahead and do that. Sean might turn in his resignation tomorrow where he's got his 30 years. We don't want that. But so he's got to be a part of, buy into this, those folks and for city administration, they'd have to look at it. Maybe they've got a staff meeting tomorrow. They might just chat about it a little bit. But I like that idea. I just think it gives you kind of some of the woodsy thing like you like with the safari. Plus you're on some green grass, if you got people, maybe some of your older people, if you got kids playing, children, it's kind of a nice environment for them that public works guys have to watch what they do outside at lunchtime. But,
Mayor?
yes, go ahead, Bart.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, is there any revenue generation or is this totally free for participants? I mean, if you go over to the golf course, you're going to pay a green fee, but is there any revenue generation?
Yeah, great question. Most disc golf courses are free of charge. There's a handful in the state that do charge. The majority of those are played on actual disc golf courses. For example, Schneider's Bluff and Toads, both have disc golf courses on them. But most of the public ones, the ones that you see in like Harrisville, Brigham City, throughout Salt Lake City, and on the other 140 throughout Utah are free to play. Fort Buenaventura is a little bit different in that it's state-owned and it accepts donations, but in general, it's free usage for disc golf course purposes. Simply encouraging people to get out and enjoy that space. I will mention, as far as revenue to the city, the potential, I don't know how much potential numbers, but it's potential of just how much traffic comes to the area. I can imagine people coming and then just hopping over for a quick bite at the food area that's nearby.
Okay. By way of observation, my wife and I use the trail very frequently, and particularly from the city center south. And, so most of the time, majority of the time, it's fine. You just have to be courteous of them. But I've seen them go over my head, and I'm going, hey, sorry, didn't see you, those types of things. And again, we're frequent users, and this going around in the green space would be annoying to me, just because of having to step around and dodge and wait for the discs as we use just the trail. And the other thing is I use the community center, which is kind of by the fire station. There's a gentleman that goes over there in the evening, and because I position myself on the treadmill or on the elliptical so I can look out the window, and he will, over in the evening, now this was in the spring before baseball started, but he launches and throws and he practices, and and every once in a while you hear this thud against the, as he's throwing it back the other way, and it hits the building. And I just thought, one of these times it's going to hit the window. But anyway, and so when you're around buildings, I really am not a fan of in this way, or in a public area where people are out there with their family or the stroller or whatever. I'm the other space to the south, fine, but not in the public areas where there are the pathways and whatnot. Anyway, and the last thing is you talked about this being revenue neutral to the city or no cost to the city. I don't see, there's too many variables that maybe it's upfront cost, maybe whatever, but a couple months back it was brought up to put in some pickleball courts, and I brought up, money is very tight, especially discretionary money, and I mean it's very, very limited. I brought up my priority, and so this something like this has got to be absolutely no cost or residual cost, what I would call where the employees are out there servicing areas. That's it's not an upfront cost. That's a servicing or maintenance cost. It really needs to be looked at before anything moves forward. The city supports this.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you, Mayor.
Is that it? May I respond to those comments? Is that all right?
Go ahead.
Thank you. So regarding no cost, the goal would be no cost. I hear your concerns that there always seems to be some cost, whether it's maintenance or something unseen. The goal would be no cost. And what I do know is that the existing Northern Utah Disc Golf Association has many of the materials that would be needed, from launch pads and baskets and signage, and that's really the only three costs associated with it. Maintenance of those things. Currently, the current course is all completely done by the Northern Utah Disc Golf Association. I don't know of any city funds that go to help support that currently. So again, the goal would be no cost. If there were cement pads, that's probably something that would be a potential cost, and figuring out how to maintain those. So I agree that that's a potential. Regarding usage, I see your concern, absolutely. I would not want to be hit with a disc either. I happen to be one of those gentlemen that you would see out at the park near the community center throwing those discs. I hope that I haven't been one that has hit the building. If I had been, I apologize for that. As far as making sure it's pedestrian friendly, much of that comes in the design of the course. Yes, there's one in particular I see that happens to cross the path right there on this south tip. That's something that could be revised. This is just a potential design, and many of these, I've walked this, and it's much of the efforts there to try and alleviate those concerns can be done in the course design, wise course design, to make the throwing efforts going away from buildings instead of toward buildings, as well as away from vehicles and away from pedestrians, to make it inhabitable and useful to everybody, and respectful to everybody. So those are the hopes, and I hear those concerns, and it makes complete sense to me. I also frequently use the trail for biking and walking with my 4-year young children, who I would hope wouldn't get hit by flying objects either. Thank you.
Okay. I think just looking here at your drawing and with what Councillor Stevens said, that one loop that goes down toward the bike park, the big grassy area.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people come in here and kind of picnic on the grass, and their kids play and things like that. So I think that's one. I can see the other back around behind the buildings and to the north, which is really unusable, not used property anyway at the time. But I'd kind of look at that. big loop there. That'd be a good one, long hole and everything. But I think
Right.
we'd have to give some consideration. So, you have comments from the council or questions?
Maybe we could do a traffic study of how many people actually use that area that he's talking about, because I don't think it's that much. I think most of the traffic's going to be Sean and his lawnmower.
No, but this, yeah, then they were cutting it today, so, yeah. But there are some during the day that come here with their kids
Yeah.
and pick out, but it's really small, Alan, like you say, it's not very many.
To that end, it would be official, and I can talk with the folks at the Northern Utah Disc Golf Association. I do know that Clinton Park has a similar outline. Harrisville has one in their public usage park, and Brigham City also has, as well as some in Logan. And we could probably talk to those cities to find out how well these spaces coexisted for patrons of all types.
I think Kaysville has a park with a course too, don't they?
They do, right next to the DATC, yes. It's next to baseball fields and all sorts of stuff as well.
Yeah.
Mayor, could I make a comment?
Go ahead, Councilor.
I just appreciate Jim. Like, I mean, part of the reason I want to put him on the agenda is because I've heard from other people that are, you know, they're sad to see that disc golf go away. And, I mean, he's obviously put some effort into it. It might not be perfect right now, but it's just preliminary. I think it's a great use of that space. Like, I didn't know what he was going to show. And we can tweak it a little bit here or there, but I think keeping it in Riverdale it's kind of a unique thing. And so, you know, I just kind of want to voice my support to keep something somewhere, and you know, just keep working on it and know that, you know, there is some support to keep it here, and so whatever we got to do, who do we got to get hooked up with or whatever.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments?
Do we need a consensus to move forward?
I think we need to, I think we could do a consensus to look at it. I don't think we'd look at the proposals. I know it needs to be thought about by the staff and things and looked at, and everybody really about what you proposed. I know Alan even mentioned, yeah, maybe that 17 acres could be being used until, or a portion of it until that property, there's a decision made on how to use that property. But so those things got to be talked about. I think we could, I don't know, any other thoughts from the council as far as a consensus or?
Mayor, I'm wondering if we, rather than settle on any particular design, if we could get a consensus on supporting the concept with the assumption that we can all come to agreement on a plan in the future, and then we'll reach another consensus on that.
Okay, is that a motion for a consensus? Do we have a
Yes.
Consensus on taking a good look at the proposals?
I'm a yes.
You're a yes.
I'm a yes.
Steve's a yes. 3.
I'm a yes, yeah.
Okay.
I'm a yes, but I'd like to have Sean's opinion on this where it impacts him more than anybody else. It's right in his backyard.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we need. Okay, we got a consensus then. I think we've got at least 4.
Mayor?
Yes.
Okay, so my vote's irrelevant at this point, but I have some real concerns. I mean, because what I'm hearing is what is presently there isn't good enough. They want more, and I kind of am thinking. Anyway, I have some, especially with the picture I'm looking at, you know, unused property, the 17 acres that's unused until it's used. Yeah, okay, but this is, you know, there are certain times of the day, these are very, there's activities in this area the picture that's on the screen. I'm not in favor of that. particular area. But whatever, you've got your consensus.
Okay, I think, Bart, and I can see where you're coming from on that with some of it. I think right now, just take a look, let the staff talk about it, and council think about it. I think maybe for Mr. Packard, I don't know that so much that he's trying to get something better more than they got. I think they know they're in trouble with the space where they're at. And they're just trying to find something else, a workaround, and to come up with this idea. I give you credit for that, Jim. And I know there's been a lot of thought gone into this, and it is a different. I know, Bart, you like to think outside the box. I've always credited you with that type of a person, and I think Jim they've just come up with some options about maybe helping the city with their 40 acres and still being able to accomplish what they want to do. But I know they're like Kaysville. I know they got a nice park in the other cities that, disc golf venue that they can play. But I think at least my thought was we'd try to work with them. We can't say for sure because it's city property and the council has to approve it and do everything. I mean, there's a lot of this things that got to change, but I think it's good you brought this, and I think why don't we just go ahead and let us look it over, Jim, and maybe kind of see what the thoughts are there, what can be done there.
Sounds
maybe there may be a possibility there with your course number one, and then again, after they talk about it, they might say, hey, we're not sure we really want to do that. Let's look at something else. So, does that sound all right?
Sounds great. I would ask two things. Is there a specific email address I can send these slides to so that they can be reviewed by the council and other people who need to see them? That's question one. And question two comment two is I appreciate the venue to speak about this. And my feeling is, like you mentioned, Mayor, we're just trying to find something that can be of use. It's not a land grab for the disc golf community. From my own personal standpoint, I'm a dad. I've got 4 young boys, and it's becoming one of our primary hobbies as a family, and looking for opportunities to continue that nearby. So if I can learn who I can send this to so that it can be disseminated, that's fine. And I'd be happy to be a part of any other future discussions or come in for additional questions among whatever discussions to talk about alternative layouts so that it can be more equitable.
Jim, if you could send those to me. Sorry, Mayor.
And I do have your email address.
Yes.
Thank you, Shaylee.
Awesome.
That'll be good. So, yeah, thank you, Shaylee, and thank you, Jim, for being here, and thanks for your what you've done trying to come up with an alternative, well, just a solution to a problem. So maybe that can keep the disc golfers happy and still have room for the residents to maybe pursue some other things. So,
Agreed.
All right, thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Okay, move on to action item number 3, discussion on resuming in-person city council and planning commission meetings. At this point, we had in our work session, we did have a discussion. The city council agreed, probably had a consensus to resume the in-person city council meetings in June. We'd go ahead with this, and masks are optional. And so we're just gonna go ahead with that with the council. I think Mike and Bill, I think planning commission, maybe just have to look at that before you make that change and decide. We can talk about that and see and kind of get them maybe a similar discussion at this next planning commission meeting on the fourth Tuesday. So I think that's still coming up, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. But anyway, for now, let's plan that. Does everybody have a consensus on that, council, on the in-person city council meetings?
Yes, this is Braden.
Yes, this is Brent.
Yes, this is Alan. But the public has to wear masks.
Well, they're required right now when they come in the building. Of course, that requires us. But we'll take a look at the public. I think you're probably being a little facetious, especially where most are vaccinated. So, all right, let's move on. Consideration and set a public hearing for June 15th. Mr. Carden.
I don't have anything to add that we didn't cover in the work session unless anybody has any questions about those public hearings.
Mayor,
Go ahead.
motion to set those public hearings as stated in the packet.
Second. Alan.
Braden. Motion. Any discussion on the motion?
I just a possibility of however they want to set it up, so it's individual public hearings or just one public hearing, whichever. I would be good with that if the motion was good.
Okay. Steve said we would be okay to do one public hearing. I think we're okay, but I think we should define each one. Is that what Steve said? Shaylee's got.
Yeah, we'd need to make sure we section those out well, so our minutes are really clear, but we could have one public hearing to deal with them all.
Just go over each item.
Right.
Yeah, rather than go in and out of every public. I don't remember ever doing that. We went in and out of each one individually. So let's just do that and list those items the same way we did this time, Shaylee. So we can go through that and be specific and address each item there. So.
Do you want me to do roll call, Mayor?
No, you don't need a roll call on.
Good job.
We okay? Did we vote on that?
Aye.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? All right, let's move on to discretionary items for city council. Do we have any additional discretionary items?
Mayor?
Yes.
I'd like to wish Shaylee well in her position. I hate to see her leave. As a city recorder, she's done a great job. She's put in a lot of hours and made our city council look very professional. So wish her well. Sorry to see her leave as city recorder.
Thank you.
Hilton seconds that.
That's great. Let me mention something here briefly during discretionary. I know Bart was concerned about graffiti, but just as an interest item, a lot of people know that Randy Polson, know him. He was on the trail here recently, and he saw a couple of like juveniles or younger people, young adults, by Kayak Park, and they were graffitiing. They'd done the outside the door, they'd done on the trail, they'd done on under the overpass, and several places. And he called the police, and police in the usual manner were Johnny on the spot, so to speak, but they caught these two guys, and they will be going to Riverdale City Court, so we're hoping that don't know what the judge will do, but I don't remember him catching graffiti artists in the past. So that was a good catch, and hopefully that the punishment will fit what they caused to the public by doing what they do. So, okay, do we have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved.
Second?
Have a motion, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous in favor. Going to move on next to our RDA meeting. I'd like to welcome you to our RDA board meeting this evening, Tuesday, May 18th, 2021. For the record, all board members are present, as are members of the staff. We move on next to our public comment period. Do we have anyone here for public comment, Shaylee? Any messages or emails? Or?
So no emails, nothing on YouTube, and no, there's no one here.
Okay. No text, Rich? He may have departed where he doesn't come to this meeting. So move on to consent items. Consideration to approve the meeting minutes from April 6, 2021, the RDA meeting, and the April 20th, 2021 RDA meeting. Do we have any changes or corrections in addition to the one minor change in the work session? Do we have a motion to approve the consent items?
Mayor, this is Braden. Motion to approve consent items.
Mayor, this is Brent. Second?
Have a motion, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, unanimous in favor. Move on to the action items. We have our first action item, discussion consideration to reimburse developers part of the increased property taxes. And we discussed that in our work session, and there will be no action taken on this item this evening. So we'll move on to action item number 2. This is consideration to set a public hearing for June 15th, 2021. Mr. Kobabe.
Thank you, Mayor. As mentioned in the previous City Council meeting, we are looking to set dates for review and public comment, public hearings for the budget for the RDA, as listed in your staff report and on the item there. So we can get that requirement taken care of.
Okay, is there any questions on this item? Do we have a motion to set the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? It's unanimous in favor. Thank you. Any discretionary for
Mayor?
Go ahead.
We probably should still take a vote on that action item number 1. I mean, even as a consent item, we still take a vote on it, even if we're not going to discuss it any further than that. I know by agreement we're bound by it, but we still should take a vote on it.
Historically, Steve, that's just been a report by the RDA executive director. I'm just saying that's what we've done historically. So
we haven't listed it as consent items in the
it's always just been under presentations and reports on the agenda. It hasn't even been in consent items.
Okay.
Okay with that, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine. I hate to skip over something that's, I mean, the wording on that would be concerning if I was a member of the public, but we're probably fine. I know by contract we're bound by that anyway, so we're probably good.
Okay. All right. Okay, move on to discretionary for this meeting. We have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second, this is Braden.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Meeting is adjourned. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the discussion.